Hello there ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? It's Alexander Hilly123 here and it's time for a new video. This is penultimate video today in my top 50 albums of the 1990s list, detailing albums 10, 9, 8, 7 and 6, and this time next week I will be recording my final video in my playlist, the top 50 albums of the 90s list. It will be albums 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. And now we are heading into territory of not only my favourite albums of the 90s, but my favourite albums of all time. Some absolutely astonishing albums here, ladies and gentlemen, in my personal opinion. My mum's running the water, if you can hear there in the background, and I've got the light on as well. It is only 20 past 4 in the afternoon on a Sunday when I make these videos, but it's getting very dark already, and it is also getting very cold. We're heading into winter, ladies and gentlemen. Let's stick together. Let's keep listening to great music. Let's keep playing great video games, and we will get through it. Indeed we will. Yes, that's right. I'm not a big fan of winter or summer. I'm all about autumn and spring. But hey, there we go. We can't do anything about it now. It's coming. Christmas will be here soon. Already seen bloody adverts. Oh God. But we'll get through it, like I said. I'm a bit of a Scrooge these days. Anyway, still enjoy the food though. 10 at 10. Yes, that's right. That's where we're beginning today, ladies and gentlemen, with the debut studio album from the American rock band Pearl Jam. The album is titled 10 and it's 10 in my list. Released August 1991 through Epic Records, following the disbanding of bassist Jeff Ament, guitarist Stone Gossard, previous group Mother Love Bone. The two of them recruited vocalist Eddie Vedder, guitarist Mike McCready and drummer Mike Cruzan to form Pearl Jam in 1990. Most of the songs began as instrumental jams, to which Eddie added lyrics about topics such as depression, homelessness and abuse. And yeah, across their wandering discography, I love everything that Pearl Jam have done, or at least like. They've had a few missteps here and there. I don't think they've made an incredibly consistent album in probably well over a decade, but they've never released a bad album in my opinion. The B-sides are incredible. They treat the fans fantastically. Got such a great relationship with the fans, and the set lists are utterly incredible, and they always do something new on the set lists, and they last so long when they're live in concert. Always well over 2 hours. Absolutely fantastic. And you know, they ain't spring chickens anymore. These fellas are in the mid-late 40s, but they're still going strong. But for me, 10 is still the best thing that Pearl Jam have ever done, even though I love Yield, I love Versus, I love Binaural, which is an incredibly underrated album in my opinion. But I'll just talk about the track listing in this album, just go through the songs. Once, Even Flow, Alive, Why Go, Black, Jeremy, Oceans, Porch, Garden, Deep and Release. 11 tracks there, and guess what? I adore the whole lot of them. More rockier songs like Once, Even Flow, Alive, Why Go, Porch, Garden, Deep. The guitar tone on this album sounds very unique, it sounds very different, it sounds very grimy and dirty, but at the same time you've got slower, more emotional pieces of music here like Oceans, Black, the incredible Black, the ultimate love song really when you think about it, and then the best till last, the song that I'm putting in the drop down menu, Release, which for me is one of the best songs ever made. Beautiful solos on this album. Alive, which for me deserves to be a contender for best solo ever. You know, I don't know everything about music, but there's not many that are better than the solo in that song. It's definitely right up there. So good. The drums are great. Eddie Vedder's vocals are so fantastic. And the lyrics, some really intriguing lyrics from a personal standpoint with Eddie, such as Release, where he's talking about the guy who raised him, who turned out to be his stepdad, but he thought he was his dad growing up, but his dad actually died when he was either very young or just before he was born. I think that's among the lines of it, but I'm not 100% sure. It's something similar to that. And obviously that's very emotional to hear. And then Jeremy, which is, in my opinion, when I listen to that track and when you watch the video, you get this kind of image of an autistic child, or a child who is very bad communicator with people, is very quiet. And Eddie goes into first person through the eyes of this bully, and he's talking about hitting Jeremy. And he says, I clearly remember picking on the boy, seemed a little harmless fuck, but we unleashed the lion. And then he hit him with a left jab or something like that, he says, and he says, my jaw left hurting. It's just so fantastic to listen to. And for me, 10 is an iconic album, classic album, and it gets better with age. Running in at 53 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. If you've never listened to Pearl Jam, if you've never listened to 10, you've got to do so right now. Yeah, 10 out of 10. And now for number 9, the album's not called number 9 this time, it is called Souvlaki, and it is by the dream pop shoegazing band Slowdive, released May 1993. This is widely regarded as the band's best album, so Wikipedia says, and I agree with that. They released 3 albums before they split up in 1995. 1991's Just for a Day, and 1995's Pygmalion. This was released in 1993, sandwiched between those two. And this album has a wonderful atmosphere, very consistent throughout, very ethereal, very pretty at the same time. Bit of darkness there, though, as well. Male and female vocals from Neil Halstead and Rachel Goswell. And I've always preferred this album to My Bloody Valentine's Loveless. They are compared a lot, but I do think it is a more melancholic album than that. Loveless has a lot of chugging guitar and heaviness to it, it's noise. This album has a bit of that, but not so much. Alison, Machine Gun, 40 Days sing Here She Comes, When the Sun Hits, which is the song I'm putting in the drop down menu. All fantastic. And then 2 of the 3 last songs are All Together and Dagger, which are probably the more slow paced songs on the album. Beautiful piano, guitar, mixed female and male vocals, like I said, and a great atmosphere. Brian Eno co-produced this album, so if you know Brian Eno, you know what you'll be getting. Absolutely fantastic production and sound, and it's one of the best albums ever, guys. I don't really know how to talk about this album anymore. If you're in the mood for a very ethereal, pretty album, there's a great words to describe it, then I would definitely check this album out. Yeah. And now, number 8 in the list, a man who was always downbeat in his music. He was a very troubled man. This album for me is a crossover from his older stuff to his newer stuff. It is Mr. Elliott Smith, and it is Either Or. And I think that album name is a reference to what was happening with his music. His first 2 albums, Roman Candle, released in 1994, and then the self-titled second album, Elliott Smith, in 95, were very, very melancholic, so lo-fi, really quiet folk albums. And this album had a little bit more electric guitar, and in the drop-down menu I'm going to put Cupid's Trick there, which is one of my favourite songs from the album, without a shadow of a doubt. At this time, with all these albums, I'm having a pretty tough time picking a certain song as my favourite, but Cupid's Trick is probably the loudest track on this album. It has a really good solo, and it'll get your head bobbing, it really will. It's very rocky. The rest of the tracks on the album aren't really like that, but they're a little bit louder than the stuff that was on his first 2 albums. And yeah, Pitchfork Media ranked Either Or 59th in its list of the 100 greatest albums of the 1990s. Spin Magazine ranked Either Or 48th on its list of albums from 87 to 2012. It's a bit random. And Blender ranked it 36 in its 100 greatest indie rock albums ever. Indie rock. But nevertheless, it's highly regarded. It's absolutely fantastic and very, very dark at the same time. After this album, Elliott started experimenting more, whilst never really leaving his earlier roots. He intertwined the music with XO, Figure 8, and From a Basement on the Hill. He released, he didn't release, he died by that point, but in 2007, New Moon came out, which was a compilation of all the tracks and B-sides. Absolutely fantastic album. Some of the tracks that he had locked away in the vault were absolutely beautiful and brilliant and very consistent. And he never released a bad album. For me, one of the best singer-songwriters ever and one of my favourites. I saw someone on Sputnik Music saying, I love Elliott Smith, but when people compare him to the very best, I laugh. And I was like, well, why are you laughing? He is one of the best, in my opinion. Check the discography. I mean, lyrically, not one of the best ever. You know, he's no Leonard Cohen, for example, but in terms of emotion and sincerity and genuine soul whilst he's playing this music, it's coming from his soul, and it's very, very real. He had a lot of trouble with heroin and drug addiction, and I think alcohol. I'm not sure about alcohol, but definitely drug addiction, and just depression. And there's a bit of a Kurt Cobain story in terms of how he died. I don't want to discuss that here, but if you do want to know more, then check his Wikipedia page. I'm not going to talk about that right here. What I'm going to talk about is his fantastic music. My 8th favourite album of the 1990s, 1998's Either Or. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're still in 1998. Oh, actually, Either Or was 1997, my mistake, but we're going 1 year further on down the list now. April 1998 is the third full-length album by the band Katatonia, and that is Katatonia with a K and not a C, not Mulder and Scully, the Welsh band. This is the metal band Katatonia, and the album was released April 27th, 1998. The last Katatonia released with Michael Oritoft. It is the last release with Jonas Rensk on drums, and on future Katatonia releases he only performs vocals, but he plays the drums and the vocals on this album, Jonas Rensk. I would think that's very hard to do, but I'm not a musical person. I love my music, but I've never played music in my life. Playing the drums while singing, I'd imagine that to be pretty damn tough, but there we go. And this album for me is a masterpiece. It isn't seen as a masterpiece within the metal community and within Katatonia fans, and I think that's because the band changed and it has always changed. I think Katatonia are an amazing band, to be perfectly honest with you. The first two albums are pure doom metal, screamed, screeched, growling vocals, and the second album, Brave Murder Day, Opeth's Michael Ackerfeldt actually takes the reins with the vocals, mixed in with Jonas Rensk. He does the clean vocals, and talk about mixing brutality with beauty. That album is a doom metal masterpiece. And this album, basically, the riffs are very similar. Slow, plodding, hypnotic guitars and very hypnotic drums. A lot of these songs sound the same the first time you listen to the album, but listen to the album a few times and it might just start working its magic on you. It certainly did with me. And it is very much a winter album. I said that about the Agalloch album, Pale Folklore, and Agalloch's music in general. I get the same vibe with older Katatonia. But yeah, a lot of the fans obviously at the time weren't happy because they saw it as mainstream garbage, metal elitists alike. But after this, they made Tonight's Decision, Last Third Deal Gone Down, where in my opinion they had a kind of metallic The Cure sound. If you're a big fan of The Cure and you've never listened to Katatonia's music, then I highly recommend. There is definite similarities with Mr. Robert Smith's music with vocals, with Jonas Rensk vocals, especially around the time of Discouraged Ones. The last two Katatonia albums after Viva Emptiness and Great Cold Distance, which were more kind of alternative metal, really chugging riffs, but there was a bit less atmosphere, if you will, a bit more immediate. I don't know. 90's The New Day and Dead End Kings, released 2009, 2012. More experimentation, a lot more electronic, a bit of a trip-hop vibe as well, but still with the heavy riffs. These days, I would call Katatonia alternative metal, meaning that it's not your kind of old school Slayer, Metallica, Anthrax, Megadeth kind of headbanging music, but at the same time there are really heavy riffs there. There are more intense songs, but mixed in with a lot of beauty as well, and a lot of different vibes going on. But yeah, Discouraged Ones, it's just very, very consistent within its tone, and for me it is the most downbeat and most melancholic and downtrodden album of the band's career. I Break, Stalemate, Dead House, Relention, Cold Ways, Gone, Last Resort, Cut My Life into Pieces. It's nothing to do with that song. Nerve, Saw You Drown, Distrust, all very, very similar, all plodding, chugging guitars. Hypnotic is the word to describe this album, and it is a winter album, no doubt about that. And the track that I'm going to put in the drop down menu is Cold Ways. And album number 6, ladies and gentlemen, the last album for this video, the penultimate video in my top 50 albums of the 1990s list. It's another downtrodden album, I've got to be honest with you, and it is actually an album, an artist, a man who Katatonia took great inspiration from, funnily enough. It is Down Colourful Hill, and is the debut album from the slowcore band Red House Painters, released in 1992 on the 4AD label. And this album, ladies and gentlemen, came at a time when a movement was happening. Not tons of bands in it, but nevertheless there were a few. Red House Painters, Law and Codeine were the three most popular bands, and there were a lot of other smaller bands who released music as well. That alias, that moniker, that label, if you will, slowcore. Basically what slowcore is really long songs that are very dark, atmospheric, and have this very eerie guitar tone to them, which I struggle to describe really out loud in these videos. You just got to listen to the albums themselves. And the album cover for this particular album, I mean, it's just a bed with a dark grainy cover, a really old school bed, single bed, and it just sums up what you're going to hear, to be perfectly honest with you. This album runs in only at 43 minutes, and there are only 6 tracks on the album, but they are all very long. It opens up with 24, which is all about getting older and aging, and there is definitely that lyrical vibe on this album, no doubt about it. But within the next track, Medicine Bottle, it's all about broken down relationships and how Mert Kozolek always thinks he's not good enough, and these women, his girlfriends, he's had a telling him what to do, and then he needs to get out of his bedroom and start living life. So many unbelievable lyrics that are so quotable, absolutely fantastic. Then Down Colourful Hill, which has these kind of marching drums, heavy on the reverb. It actually says it on the Wikipedia page here that Mert Kozolek himself expressed regret over the reverb and echo heavy mixing techniques that he employed on the album because he produced it. But for me, that heavy reverb and the echo helps this album greatly, and it just makes it sound amazing. Japanese to English is the song that I put in the drop down menu. When you listen to it for the first time, you'll be surprised at how Mert Kozolek pronounces Japanese. He does it to make the song fit. You see, he says the lyrics, I cannot translate English to Japan ease. That's the way he says Japanese, because if you go, I cannot translate English to Japanese, it doesn't really sound right, so he said Japan ease. If you listen to the song, you'll know what I'm talking about. It sounds very bizarre, and it is bizarre really, but it just works, and it doesn't take away the seriousness of the song, even though it sounds quite silly. Then Lord Kill the Pain, which is decent, but it's the weakest track from the album, in my opinion. But the song I've got to talk about now is Michael, the song that finishes the album off. And this is all about lost friends, nostalgia again, aging. But it's something that we can all relate to, and I think that's very important on this album. And there is a story that Mert Kozolek and Red House Painters of the band were playing this in the mid-90s. And the guy, Michael, I think it might have been at San Francisco, where I think Mert grew up. I think they're located to San Francisco. He was born in Chicago. I can't remember. But basically, Michael, the guy who the song was about, was there in the front row of the audience, and Mert Kozolek didn't know it beforehand, but obviously he found out whilst playing the set list, and Michael was on the set list, and then he played it. And the lyrics, when you listen to them, are so heartfelt and honest about Michael's triple X girlfriends, who said that Michael had lost his mind, and Mert says, I never knew that you ever did lose his mind, because he lost touch with him, but he was best friends with him growing up from the ages of about 5 to 16 or whatever, I'm guessing. And supposedly there wasn't a dry pair of eyes in the building that night when he played that, when Michael was in the front row, as you can expect. And it's just an incredible story. It's almost hard to believe, but it is absolutely fantastic, and it is such a great album. And I love Mert Kozolek. For me, in terms of the actual mainstream, he's heavily regarded as one of the best singer-songwriters ever, but there's a lot of people who don't realise it, and they really should. For me, his solo music, his covers are amazing. The music he's made under the alias of Sun Kill Moon is also fantastic. My favourite release from Mert Kozolek over his whole discography and his musical history is the album April, which was released in 2008. I actually uploaded a song from that album called Lucky Man, which has got about 35,000 views. That song for me is just absolutely amazing, so beautiful. And he's currently, in these last 2 albums, started giving his personal opinions on a lot of things, speaking his mind. Mert is certainly a man to do that. He does come across as the kind of guy you don't want to mess with and don't want to get on his bad side. And he doesn't like English people as well. I won't say English people, he doesn't like London. And to be honest with you, Neither do I, so I know where he's coming from. He's made quite a few songs about the UK before, but his references, his lyrics, his guitar playing, absolutely fantastic. I love Mark Kozelek, and Down Colourful Hill is my 6th favourite album of the 1990s, ladies and gentlemen. And that is the penultimate video finished. And we're at 20 minutes. I'm going to cut it short here. I think it's shorter than the last video I did anyway. Please join me for the next video, ladies and gentlemen. It will be the last 10 videos out of 10. Albums 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. My favourites of the 1990s list. Please join me then. And I'll see you.